In lesson 13, we take making ratio tables to the next level, and we make ratio tables that look a little more complicated. They're not really that much more complicated, but what we're doing is we have ratio set up. There's a ratio of one unit to another unit, and then those units make a total. So in this example problem, we're making purple paint. So they're going to mix a certain amount of milliliters of red dye and blue dye together and to get purple dye. The amount of each kind of dye used to create the same shade is given in the table below. So if we have the same shade of purple when we mix these together, then when we mix it with the other paint, it's going to all be the same shade of purple. Complete the table and write an equation to describe the relationship between the amount of red dye and blue dye. So they filled in some parts for us. We know that to make a certain shade of purple, we use 3.5 milliliters of red dye and 5.25 milliliters of blue dye. So the first thing you want to do is figure out what our constant is. If we know it's making the same shade of purple, then we know that the relationship is proportional. So we can actually calculate this ourselves by dividing. So if we take 5.25 and we divide it by 3.5, we'll find that our constant should be 1.5. So if we take 5.25 divided by 3.5, we should get 1.5. That means we take 3.5 and multiply by 1.5, and that gives us 5.25. So our constant is 1.5. So we can already write the equation that the amount of blue dye is equal to 1.5 times the amount of red dye. It looks very similar to our equations that we've written, y equals the constant times x. Only now we're making a real life problem, so we have blue for B for blue and R for red. And the total dye is literally just the addition problem. So we're going to take 3.5 and add it to 5.25, and we should get 8.75. Now, that is pretty straightforward, but when we are missing the ratio that gives us 5 total, that's where it gets a little bit more tricky. So we've got to figure out when I mix 1.5 times something, and what can I multiply by 1.5 that when I add them together will give me 5? So it's kind of like solving a system of equations, but we can, most of the time, pick out how to solve this pretty easily without doing any algebra. So I've written an equation. The red plus the blue equals 5. We know that whatever's in the red column plus the blue column has to equal 5 for the second row. We also know that using our equation that we've already written, that the amount of blue dye is 1.5 times the red dye. So what we can actually do is substitute for blue. So we've got red plus we'll substitute in our equation 1.5 times the red. And if we add red plus, we're just treating this like we're just treating it like a variable. So r plus 1.5r, remember this is 1r. So 1 plus 1.5 is 2.5 times the amount of red will give me 5. So to undo multiplication and figure out what our red's going to be, let's divide by 2.5. So red equals 5 divided by 2.5. And if you see how many times 2.5 goes into 5, you should get 2. So we can say that there's 2 red dye, and there should be 2 times 1.5, which is 3, to give me 5. Now, ignoring the total column for the next row, we want to just ignore it for a second and only look at the blue dye. We've already done this. We already know how to do it. And to get from the right column to the left column, we need to divide by our constant. So 6.75 divided by 1.5 should give us 4.5. And if we have 4.5 plus 6.75, we're going to get 11.25. Okay, now keeping an eye on the last column, it gave us the red dye. We need to get the blue dye. So in this case, we're going to multiply 6.5 times 1.5, and we will end up with 9 3/4 or 9.75. And the amount of purple dye is just 6.5 plus 9.75, which is going to give us 16.25.